you.
So are you going to use her? With our guest, and we shall be logging on shortly. Please grab a coffee. Tell anyone who is out there to come and listen to this, to an incredibly deep conversation that we are going to have with the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. Right. Right Honorable, we're very honored to have you here. As we Right Honorable, we're very honored to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Switch it off.
No, just for WhatsApp, but not to excessive.
It's okay, you can download.
A leader in our country, a trailblazer, a pathfinder, and we are honored to have her here. She's with us right now. We're just working on a few connectivity issues, but please keep logging in. We are going to have a fantastic conversation with none other than the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, First Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of East African Affairs, Speaker Emeritus of the Republic of Uganda. We are more than privileged to have you here, Right Honorable, and with us are so many people. I can see the Vice President of the Uganda Law Society. I can see the President of the Uganda Law Society as well on here. I can see a number of interesting guests. I can see judicial officers. So I think we are going to have what I'm sure will end up being a wonderful conversation. For those who are just joining, this is the Judicial Service Conversations. That's what we call these conversations. And we will be explaining very shortly what those conversations are. We have been graced, I think, by our I don't know the correct word, our highest VIP, if I can call Right Honorable that, our highest VIP. And someone who is not just a VIP in title, but a VIP in substance and stature, who has walked the paths of our courts and our laws for years, and who has a deep understanding, who has written the law and practiced the law extensively. And so from us at Judicial Service Conversations, we welcome each and every one of you right here. It's going to be an interesting conversation, I'm sure. And we'll be on in just a minute. But as we are waiting, for those who are unaccustomed to the traditions of Judicial Service Conversations, before we start, we usually play a song. And I can see a few of you have joined us. And this song is Nobody Can Stop Reggae. And the reason why we play Nobody Can Stop Reggae, is because nobody can stop reggae. Sure? Mercy, you'll have to help a lot, eh? Princess Becky. Change the name. Friends and colleagues, I will give you a brief outline of these conversations, especially so that our guests can know where we have come from. On 3rd December 2024, the Uganda Law Society nominated candidates to contest as its representatives on the Judicial Service Commission. I was one of those candidates, and on the 13th of December 2024, the High Court, in its wisdom, injuncted the process of those elections to the Judicial Service Commission. So at the moment, the Judicial Service Commission sits without Uganda Law Society representatives, contrary to Article 146 of the Constitution. We have a constitutional body without a vital organ. But the hope of our members didn't die, nor did their voice. Out of that silencing was born a new sound. And out of that shrinking of space were born these spaces. So every Wednesday, for the last 9 months, we meet and congregate here. We begin our congregation with a melody of hope that nobody can stop reggae. We play that song because we know that nobody can actually stop reggae. And in these spaces we talk, Right Honorable, we laugh and we learn. We've hosted more than 30 lawyers, many of them senior, but not all of them. We've hosted court clerks. We've hosted court reporters. We've hosted amazing NGOs like FIDA, Barefoot Law, and the incredible Women's Pro Bono Initiative, as well as the Legal Aid Project of the Uganda Law Society. We've hosted historical leaders like the Honorable Major retired Gertrude Njuba, only last week as we're celebrating as a society the late Sam Njubas. We've hosted academics. We've hosted lawyers from all over the country, from Masaka, from Barara, from Jinja, from Arua, and from Gulu. We've hosted commercial practitioners. We've hosted family law practitioners. We've hosted the Council of ULS, Mr. Nangulu, our representative in the East. We've hosted the Vice President, who is online right now, Mr. Anthony Asimwe, and on various occasions, we have had the pleasure of hosting the President of the Uganda Law Society, Mr. Isaac Semakade, Senior Counsel. We've hosted the Principal Judge Emeritus, the Honorable Justice Bamwine. Right Honorable, we've hosted and debated for more than 5 hours the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Honorable Norbert Mao. We've taken these conversations not just here, but even across our borders, where we hosted an incredible gentleman called Benjamin Mbekezeli, who runs what is called Judges Matter in South Africa. We also hosted Senior Counsel Muzi Sikahane, who is an acting judge in South Africa, a senior counsel in South Africa, and counts among his clients great sons of Africa, like Nelson Mandela, Floyd Shimbavu, Julius Malema, and the EFF and ANC, or political organizations in South Africa. And he brought for us the wisdom of the continental struggle and the fire of African justice. On 17th September this year, which is, I think, a week or two ago, the Uganda Law Society was finally released to holding these elections. And so these spaces, at least in this form, will soon be coming to an end. We're in the evening of these spaces, but colleagues of the Law Society know that at least this evening is going to be a wonderful evening, because, colleagues, we are honored and privileged to host an advocate, a senior advocate of the Courts of Judicature of Uganda. A member, not just a member of the Uganda Law Society, but one of the few members who has received a Lifetime Achievement Award as a member of our society. We are hosting easily one of Uganda's most recognizable advocates. We are hosting colleagues. We are hosting colleagues. The first woman, the first person to open a woman-owned law firm in Uganda. Before she opened a woman-owned law firm, no other woman had dared to put her name on a door. But our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, put her name on a door where no woman had dared before. Colleagues, our guest is not just a senior advocate. She's also a great reformer. In 1986 to 89, she was the chairperson or president of FIDA Uganda. And in 1988, FIDA launched its first ever legal aid clinic in Kampala, tearing down walls of poverty and discrimination that had kept women from justice. That legal aid work that FIDA started in the 1980s, with our guest at the forefront, has made that organization a household name in every corner of this country, because it was both a seed and a spark. It was the beginning of FIDA's direct service to the people, and from that day until this, everyone and everywhere knows FIDA. And it's important because by 1988, colleagues, older colleagues, when I look at the list of people who have joined, I can see some of them, but I won't call them out. Some of our older colleagues will know that by 1988, the women's rights were not a thing even globally. I think it was only until 1995, when there was that global conference in Beijing, that governments adopted a stand towards women's rights. But as far back as 1988, our guest was pushing the boundaries not just in private practice, but in public service. Uganda became a shining example in the fight for women's emancipation, which is not a foreign concept, but a domestic concept initiated by the great women of that time. Our guest was also elected to parliament in 1989 and has been through 7 electoral cycles, or maybe 8, I can't even count, successfully. I think the only Ugandan to have represented the constituency in parliament undefeated. I think she's the undefeated reigning champion of constituency politics. In 1994, President Yoweri Museveni nominated our guest to be the chairperson of the Constituent Assembly. One of, I think, 5 people. One of the 5 people nominated by the president, who had seen and recognized her talent and thought that in that most crucial time of birthing a new constitutional document, of the 5 Ugandans who could chair it, the president nominated our guest today. I think she was then appointed to cabinet shortly after, I think in 96, if I'm right. And not just to cabinet, but I think parliamentary affairs. Foreign affairs, and then subsequently parliamentary affairs, so that she could balance the delicate task of bridging an executive and a legislature that were both coming to terms with a new constitutional dispensation. Our guest has been the national vice chairperson, first national vice chairperson of the National Resistance Movement, has been the deputy speaker of parliament, was the first woman speaker of parliament, where she served as a speaker of parliament for 10 years, as we've said, longest serving MP, first deputy prime minister of the Republic of Uganda, minister of East African Community Affairs. It is a CV that doesn't just speak of title and position, but speaks of influence, of change, of barrier breaking, of door opening. There are many women leaders, even on this space right now, who will testify of the doors that our guest has opened. And so, without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, allow me to give to you none other than the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. Right Honorable, you are most welcome to the Judicial Service Conversations.
Thank you very much, Edison and the team. I've been reading about occasionally on Twitter, but I think I'm happy to be able to share my experiences with the legal profession and all our listeners. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable. And I think the first question people want to know, they want to know about the person of Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. How would you describe your life journey, and where did you start from, and what did it take to take you to the top? People just want to know the Kadaga story.
Now, my story begins, in relation to my profession, begins at Shimoni Demonstration Primary School. The late Shimoni Demonstration School, that's what I call it. Because it's no longer there now. It's where now the Kingdom House sits. But at that time, my father was a civil servant at the Ministry of Justice. And in the evenings when he came home, he would relate to us about the cases that he has been handling, what the judge said, what the prosecution said, what the defendant said, and how the prosecution behaved, and so on. So I began to take an interest in the law as a child in primary school. So by the time I finished primary school, I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. So that's where I started, and I went on progressively through school until I went to secondary school in St. Catherine Secondary School in Lira. Went to Kamuri College in Namusagari. I left there as one of the best students in the country. I went to university, Makerere University, later LDC, etc. So it really started there. Oh, have you? So it really started in this very village where we are seated.
Okay.
Just complete silence.
Okay. So you started in Shimoni, and you're now back at the exact same building where you started.
Yes.
What took you to the top? What are the things what is, if someone is out there listening and they want to know, what lessons do I learn to become as successful as Honorable Kadaga? What lessons could you tell them?
I think one of the things that somehow I grew up with was the sense of justice. I don't like to see unfairness, and even as a child, I tried to stop fights when people are fighting unfairly. I would try to stop them, and so on. If someone was taking some things, I would try to stop them. So the spirit of justice, I think, is something I grew up with. So that's how it really started.
Okay. Now, the other question I think which we've been receiving from people is that you are the first woman to open a law firm in Uganda. What encouraged you to open a law firm, and what challenges did you face? Why was it such a male-dominated profession? I mean, when we look at our studies, we know that some of the law firms in Kampala, like Katera and Kagomere, were opened in 1903. We had firms open in 1933. If the Legal Practice, the Law Society Act is in the 1950s, how come it waited for you in the 1980s to open a law firm? What was stopping women, and what encouraged you to put your name on a door where no other woman had?
Now, after we left LDC, of course, we grew up during Amin's time. And at the end of the LDC course, we undertook some interviews through the public service. I wanted to be either a state attorney or foreign service officer. I didn't get either. So I took up some temporary work at the Uganda Hotel. Where I was doing research on the ownership of the various assets, like the Uganda hotels, in the hotel in Soroti, the hotel in Jinja, the hotel all over Uganda. I was doing research on the ownership and so on. So I kept on doing the law, but it was kind of monotonous, and I really wanted to practice my profession. So I went to Katonga and Company Advocates. They were around the corner, that building of the Bank of Baroda building. They had an office there, Katongole and Mukasa at that time. I worked there briefly, but there was not much work in the chambers. Then I moved down on the same building to Obolo and Company Advocates, which was slightly more busy. There I found a lot of work, it was so much work that actually I found myself doing most of the work, preparing the cases and doing the research. But over time, I realized that I was not being paid sufficiently well for the work I was doing. And I felt that what I'm doing here for Mr. Ochola, I can do for myself. So that's how I said, but why don't I do it for myself? So I got an office up along the same road, and one day I woke up and said, I've gone. And people said, but no, you're going to you'll come back in 1 week, you're not going to marry. I said, don't worry. let's see about that. So I went, and I've never looked back. But of course, I want to thank Mr. Ochola for giving the opportunity to train in his chambers. It gave me quite a bit of experience. Learned about estates. I learned about missing persons. You know, that was the time when the end of the war, when people have disappeared. You know, how to manage estates of dead people, estates of missing people. So many things. So that's how I started, and I got a few clients, and then interestingly, nobody in Uganda thought I would manage. So I was actually also a tourist attraction. People would say there's a girl there who's doing some work, and people would come and just look and say there's a girl actually who's running chambers here. Then I used to walk from that building to the High Court, you know, along Kampala around the post office, Hunter and Grey, etc., going up with my gown on my hand and my files and my collars. I would dress right from my office. So I was really a tourist attraction. It was very, very interesting. But what I found most interesting at that time was the fact that I could not secure corporate business. Whatever I tried, you found the men had already taken it. It was difficult to get into the corporate world. All the companies had men doing their business. So that was one area which was kind of closed, and one had to do other work, but not those corporations. And also there were those who thought they would bully me in the court, but they learned things were different once I got on the floor. They learned that this is not an everyday thing. So that's how it worked. Very, very interesting. Yes.
Okay, and so how long was the farm running?
I ran that farm from effectively from 1984 up to 1990. After I joined government, of course, we were not allowed to practice, so I had to leave some people there. But you know, the legal practice is really a very personal business. The people want you; they don't want your assistant. So progressively, it became more difficult to manage both, and I put in abeyance for the time being. I'll come back sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
The law firm is in abeyance. I like that.
Yes, it's in abeyance.
Then you joined politics.
Yes.
And you subsequently become speaker, but I think people are interested in knowing your political journey. What took you into politics? How did you stand for politics, and how has politics been? We know politics as a contact sport, if I may if I may use the language of a man called Alex, who I'm seeing. He likes football a lot, and he says it's a contact sport. But I think politics seems to be the real contact sport. So, what encouraged you to? Because if you opened your farm in '84, it means your business was growing. Yes. By the time you decided to, what made you go in that direction?
Quite interesting. Actually, I had no intention of going into politics. I was more keen on the law, and as you had already indicated, I became the president. I was busy with FIDA, and then we started the legal aid service. So it is something I was really enjoying doing, because of supporting the community. So I had no plans to go to politics. But now in 1989, there was a proposal to expand the NRC, and there was a requirement that every district should have a representative from a lady to represent the district. So a number of people came to me from Busoga. They came to see me. I said, you go to help us? I said, no. Me, I'm happy with my work here. I'm happy with FIDA. I want to continue with the issue of women's rights. They said, but you can also do the right thing with us. I said, no, I can't. So, but they did not stop there. They went and talked to my father. So, you tell your daughter to come back home. So my father calls me, says, want you to help us. I said, but I don't know anybody here. I've been in Kampala, you know that. How will I even get elected? I said, don't worry, the election, leave it to me. My father was the chairman of the Democratic Party in the Usaya County. So I actually rode on his back, and through his network, I was elected. I didn't even have to campaign. My father's network campaigned for me, and I was elected unopposed, and I went to Parliament. Now, so I had my FIDA work, Parliament, and so on, and my chambers. Now, the Parliament was an interesting journey. Apart from representing people here, I got 2 shocks in my life. The first one was I decided to take a round of the hospitals in the district to see what should I talk about in Parliament. So I went to Nankandor Health Center, and I found a woman lying on the floor. She had a drip with her baby there. Another one was on the floor. So I asked the doctor, well, what is the woman doing here? That she's admitted. I said, admitted where? That here. So, but this is the floor. She said, she's admitted on the floor. So I said, this is what is happening. So I said, okay, maybe it's an isolated incident. So I decided to go to Chidera, check on Chidera. Decided to go Nawaikoke, to Namugongo. I checked on all 8 of them. I went back and told my father, I think what you pushed me for, I don't want to be part of it. I told him what I found. He said, I don't think I want to be part of this. I said, but you're supposed to find a solution. So I said, okay, then let me go back and try. So the next thing I did was now to go and check on the schools. I started in a place called Panyoro in Gadumire, where I found children sitting on stones. They're writing on their knees. So I asked the teachers, these children in what class? These are P7. Said, how would they do the exams? Said they would do the exams. So I said, the children who are writing on their knees will compete the children in Nakasero who are writing on their. They said yes. I said, now this, I really made a mistake. I shouldn't even have come for this. But then I told myself, why are you running away from these people? So I went back. I said, okay, now part of my salary, I'm going to buy furniture. I'll choose one school per parish, buy furniture to make sure that at least the children have somewhere to sit. Then I started really speaking about those issues. So I now said, okay, now that I'm here, let me try and solve these problems by talking about them. So that's really my political journey. That's how it started.
Wow, I can hear you don't run away from these people. You have to remain serving them. There's a primary school you mentioned there, which I think is in Mr. Muyaka's place, because I saw how happy he had that become once you mentioned it. And you know, it's interesting. So you go in, you're working. You have FIDA. You have
my chambers.
Your chambers.
Yes.
And then you're lured into politics by people, and you go. You find it is extremely challenging, the situation of the population. You decide to give away your own resources, which you're working for, to make sure that at least you furnish a school. Then how do you start rising through the ranks to become the brand name that everyone in this country everywhere knows? How does that happen? How do you break away from what you are seeing to just break through?
Now, and in a way, I did not really break through. Now, after when I joined Parliament, of course we had to reduce the work of FIDA. I would just say occasionally, and of course we had our executive committee, the board of trustees and so on, running things and opening many offices. But I still now realize that there were more problems in the community that need to be handled. That's how I got involved in campaigns for the women's rights, the campaign against female genital mutilation and all those things. So I kept on talking about issues about cancer, about education, about family and so on and so forth. Reforms, it became my life work to speak about them. So we started small, but it became my brand.
Okay. And then eventually you become Speaker of that Parliament. So maybe if you could take us through, because if you could just take us through the journey that that leads you to Speaker. But maybe just before you do that, if you're joining us right now on Judicial Service Conversations, we have none other than the Right Honorable Rebecca Litwala-Kadaga, First Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda and Minister of East African Community Affairs. So, Right Honorable, it becomes your brand. You're really speaking up for community, and it's also really been your work, because like they say that that thing of connecting the dots, you don't know what you're doing in life until you look backwards and finally connect, because if you're in FIDA at that time helping, because what FIDA really was, especially and still is, it's about helping indigents and women who couldn't afford, and people who are really locked out. So that spirit of social justice is moving through you, and then you rise, you become a minister, you become a speaker. So maybe if you could also just take us through the journey of how you're appointed, and then how you become the speaker.
Okay, now I was a backbencher for all that time, for about 7 years, and so mainly I was doing research and contributing on the floor, and were engaging in all these campaigns. I hope you remember the demonstrations we led in the country against defilement, against rape, against a lack of access to justice by many people in this country. So although we were in Parliament, we were also doing work of activism with many others, the people like Miriam Matembe, Madam Vitature, and others, the late Wakabi. So we continued, even apart from FIDA, we also continued activism outside. So I continued with that, despite not being in FIDA physically, but the work continued. So later I was appointed the Minister for Regional Cooperation. So it took me a bit away out of my work, but then I also picked up the other subject of issues in the region that affect the community generally. So I would use my position to advocate for issues in the region concerning education of women, concerning their rights, concerning issues of education, concerning female genital mutilation. I also made links with the other members of Parliament, like in Kenya. I was working with a girl called Lina Kilimo, which was a member for Elgeyo Marakwet. We are working with her on issues of FGM between Kenya and Uganda. We're also working with other ones in Tanzania. So I was on that job for quite a bit of time. Then from the Ministry of Regional Cooperation, I was sent the Ministry of Transport for a year. And then after that, I became the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. After that, that's when I became the Deputy Speaker, and then later the Speaker. Now, from the work of the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, I became Deputy Speaker. It's having sat in Parliament during that time, there are things I wanted to change, but you could not just change them on the floor. One needed to be somewhere to be able to steer a few things yourself. So being a Deputy Speaker assisted me to make a few changes here, to be a bigger voice, to be heard in many areas, and to speak with authority, and also facilitate some decisions that maybe would have been difficult if I was not seated where I am, and similarly also for the Speaker. But it was not an easy place to go. When I first applied for that office, there's someone who I will not name who said, no, these are not your jobs. These jobs are not for you. Stay where you are. Yeah, and he was in Parliament. He said, these are not your jobs. Stay where you are. But progressively, I think he said, okay, let's see what the women can do. And I was given that opportunity. But even in the public, there's a time where after I became Speaker, someone rang on the radio program and said, "Name Madam, you. I don't even know what you are doing there. That's not your place." From the public. So, the public had to also say, what are you doing there? So it's been a journey. Patriarchy is still a bit in this country. and but one has to work at it. Then, of course, when you are speaking from outside, you talk about law reform. You think it's when you speak it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. There are things that we struggled for over 10 years just to make some changes in the law. So it's a very, very tough journey, and one has to keep at it and keep at it. So that has been part of the journey. So it has been from the backbench to the junior minister, senior to cabinet minister, deputy speaker, then speaker.
Okay. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Judicial Service Conversations. We are hosting none other than the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, First Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of East African Community Affairs. And I think the gems which are coming out are so powerful. Sometimes people look at feminism. I'm sitting with some feminists.
Yes.
But sometimes people look at feminism. But I think the way you've expressed it, these are not your jobs. This is not your place. And then you've said patriarchy is still very strong in this society. And it's a journey, and it's a tough journey. And I think for many people, you've said it so simply, and yet it is so profound. Like, maybe I don't want to, the ladies maybe will ask it better, but that whole concept of patriarchy, how does it for us men? I can see a number of men on the space. Some of them are also feminists. Some of our men at Law Society. Some are maybe not so much, but I know Alfred is. But how do you overcome it?
I think you have to be tough. Now, I had forgotten to mention to you that when I was the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I had a very interesting experience. The President was going for a state visit in Kenya. So I went at the advance party together with Chief of Protocol and others. So we're preparing the meeting. So in the morning, the technical officers finished their meeting. So we went now as ministers to tie up the loose ends. So I went to sit behind my flag. Then the man said, "Madam, don't sit there. That's for the minister." So I said, "I'm the minister." He said, he looked at me and so asked the Chief of Protocol, "Is she the minister?" I said, "Yes, that's why I'm here." So, that one happened. Very interesting, but it happened. Then, even in the House, in the first 4 days of my being a deputy speaker, I think I should not mention his name. There was a man who tried to bully me. But in 4 days, I had put them all down. And they understood that I'm not going to be joked with. So they said, "Okay, she's tough, let's leave her." Yeah.
Okay, then there's a I wish we were mentioning the names, but
no, but some of them are dead. I don't want to talk about them.
Okay. So as speaker, what do you think what's the thing you're proudest of for the term that you served as the speaker? Because I think that's one of the highest officers in the country, and I think maybe if you could just share with us one of the things you're proudest of. If you're just joining us again, Judicial Service Conversations with Right Honorable Kadaga.
Of course, there are many things over 10 years, but I think the most profound one was during the COVID pandemic, because the whole country was under lockdown, and the lockdown came just as we were preparing the budget. So the question was whether I should close and run away together with my members and leave the country without a budget. I called my colleague in Tanzania to ask him what is he going to do. He said, "I don't know what I'm going to do." I called Mr. Muturi in Nairobi. I said, "Justin, how are you going to manage this?" He said, "I'm also thinking what to do. I don't know what to do." So I said, I think what I'm going to do, I'll get out of the building, go and sit outside, work from there, and make sure that the budget of this country is passed. Because the idea was we should not be in the buildings and we should not be close together. So we hired a tent, a very big one, spaced the room. I think first we started sitting in turns so that we don't offend the rules of closeness. And we did the work. The budget was passed. And we did more work until the end of COVID. It took a lot of courage, and it was adopted as far as the Caribbean. They all learned from my parliament about how you can work during COVID. So now it has become a way of life. You can work virtually. You can also work physically. So I consider that a very big reform in parliamentary democracy. Then on the representation of women in the House, when I was first appointed, I asked the whips, who are all men, who support the parties, to bring nominees for the chairpersonships. We had 22 committees, so we had 44 positions, vice and vice chair. So they brought 44 names, and they were all men. So I told the chairman that this is against the constitution. I'm not going to accept your list. Can you go back? I'll give you 1 week. They came back with exactly the same names. I said, I'm not accepting these names. I want some women on this. They came back with exactly the same. So I said, okay, I'll not continue fighting. For this first session, I'll let you be. But I immediately asked the Committee on Legal to amend the rules to ensure that 40% of every committee must be constituted by women and young people. So now, that's what is happening now. Then the other one, another practice I found there was that within the parliament, we had both male and women clerks. They were all working in the chambers. But whenever I traveled, I noticed I only had men with me. So when I asked, what happened with these girls? I don't see them when we are outside the country. So I was told that no, women are not allowed to travel. Women who are employed in their own right as members of staff are not allowed to travel. I said, I'm not going to accept this. So I came back and called the commission. I said, no, this must change. These ladies came here, did interviews themselves, not their husband. So you can't tell me that I must subject her to the husband's will before I can give an opportunity. So, but that was the tradition. So I changed that. I changed that as well. Another one has to do with the staff. It may look small, but at some stage we had 3 women who were pregnant, police women who were pregnant at Parliament. So one morning I found they had all been removed. So I said, what has happened? The commander said, no, they are looking ugly. Okay, they are looking ugly. Yes. You know, they are here, people are seeing them in their uniforms. They are looking ugly. I said, okay. Again, I called the commission. I said, I want those women back. Let them wear their uniforms, let them have their children, but let them have their jobs. So they came back. But you can imagine the things that happen, and if you're not looking, a lot of things can happen. So the other thing is this certificate of gender equity. It's now in use, especially for budgeting, to ensure that different sectors are all catered for. That one took us 11 years to get into the law. It was chased time and time again. We tried to put in the rules of procedure, it was chased. We tried to put in another act of parliament, it was chased, until we put it in the Public Finance Management Act. That's how we managed to get it into the law. But it took 11 years. I was there, both at the speak and the speaker. But it took that long to get into the law. So these are some of the things that one can take for granted, but they are not. Then, of course, the other one was the issue of the women and their children. I established a daycare center at Parliament, the first in the country, because during the day, the members of Parliament who had children would leave them in the car, come to work and leave the children under the sun, even the staff. We bring the cars, the children leave them in the car with the house girl, which I thought was unhealthy. So we battled. There was a portion of the Parliament building which had been taken over by the office of the president. So we battled and got them out and made our daycare center. So after that, we made a policy. I said every government office in this country must have a daycare center. All the markets, every workplace. Now it is now the norm. Any market built must have a daycare center. Offices built must have a daycare center. So we started something small, but now it is a policy. So there are many, but these are some of them.
Wow. Wow. And you know, at first when you had told us that patriarchy is a problem, maybe before I could hand over to Joy or Mercy, maybe you've talked about a number of things, and the certificate of gender equity.
Yes.
I think a lot of our people who are listening want to understand what that is.
Okay.
So maybe if you could just help us explain
Okay.
what a certificate of gender equity is.
Now, for some time we've been talking about equitable budgeting, and budgeting to ensure that all the sectors are provided for. We look at the budget and say how much of this touches the women, how much of this touches the young people, how much of this touches children. And because a lot of time budgeting is done without taking those things into account. So now each ministry is supposed to ensure that of this budget, how much of what is reflected that touches the women, touches the young people, touches the children in every budget. We have to reflect that. So that's what the certificate took us 11 years. And that is what the Equal Opportunities Commission has been using to bring the ministries to order. Yeah.
Okay, if you're just joining us, we're hosting the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, the First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of East African Community Affairs. And we are discussing Breaking Barriers, a journey of law leadership and legacy. And we are learning a lot. First of all, we are learning absolutely incredible things. I never knew, for example, that in employment, there's a time when women are not allowed to travel. That there's a time when women are dismissed from work because of being pregnant. That I mean that it takes 11 years to get a certificate of gender equity, and you have to get it through the Public Finance Management Act. I think maybe just before I hand it to some of my colleagues, maybe another question which I'm seeing coming in a lot from many people is, how do you balance the competing pressures? There's the patriarchy, as you've called it. There are also the pressures of democracy, parliament and the things MPs want, the party, the public, and how do you balance?
I think that is the hardest journey, and a very lonely one, because ultimately you are sitting that chair on your own. You must take decisions. You cannot break off to go and consult every day, so you must think first, but also you must judge what are the implications of this. The hardest one is really the issue of the party control vis-a-vis the public interest. They don't always meet, so that's one of the hardest ones. I think you remember the issue of the rebel MPs. When my party wanted to expel members, and they were using grounds that are not in the constitution, and I stood my ground. I said, no, this is not one of the grounds. And it caused a big skirmish. They even took us to court. We were taken to court. But eventually, justice took the day, said, no, you don't have grounds. So I even had to create a space in the house, because the NRM party said they are no longer our members, and they are not even opposition. So I said, okay, now, they sit in no man's land. So I said, you guys can sit in the middle there. That's where you operate. You can operate from there. Then, of course, the public interest does not always meet the party interests. That's another hard one. So one has to navigate very, very carefully. I don't know whether I remember the issue of the stupid order.
Yes.
Yes. That one is a situation where the parliamentarians were taking issue with a payment made by one of the the agencies, and we thought it was unnecessary because they'd already been paid. But somehow they maneuvered to go to court. Interestingly, the person who went to court was a government servant. A government servant going to court against Parliament. And they, in that order which came out, they were telling us not to discuss anything concerning the URA. So I said, now we're discussing the budget, we're discussing this. How can we talk about the URA? So I said, okay, in that case, I'm closing Parliament. So I said, I'm not going to obey this order. I'm adjourning the House. And I went away for a week. They had to sort it out. Interestingly, I wrote the Chief just to say that I don't see how the court can gag Parliament from speaking. But that time the court was with the executive. The order they gave was with the executive. So sometimes you have to navigate those spaces. Another time, I don't remember what they were suing us about. When we went to court, we were given a hearing date. When we went to court, all the judges were not there. all of them. They were not there. The court was closed.
Hey.
This one happened. So all these are challenges we have to navigate to be able to do our work. And so on and so forth. But one has to try to think how would it sit with the public? It's a big question one has to answer.
Okay, that's very interesting. I must confess that in that Rebel MP's case,
yes,
I was the lawyer.
Oh!
And I remember there was a decision you made, and there was a fantastic quote. I don't remember where it was from I think England. Was it Cromwell or something?
Yes.
Where you quoted and said that really the House, the independence was. And I remember reading it and I said, "Wow,
yes,
what a fantastic quote!" But I must say that I was the lawyer in that case. Then the gagging, you know, that the court was gagging Parliament. You know, in the Law Society, even as they gag us these days. but we live with them. We work together with them, and we shall be able to solve that. So maybe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Right Honourable. It's such an honour to have
You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you very much, and Right Honourable, it's such an honour to have you right here with us. And clearly you're the kind of person who has broken several ceilings and has had several fasts as a woman.
Proceed.
As a woman. So when it comes to women in leadership, I would like you to share with us a few of the things, considering your background and some of which you've shared with us. What barriers do you think still remain for women, that is in law, in politics, and leadership generally in the country?
Now, the first one, you find that, for instance, it's the men who want to decide which woman should be standing. It's the men who want to decide who should be the woman MP. Not the women. It's the men who are pushing this candidate, and you wonder, what's your business?
Yes.
You know, that's one of the first things. So the patriarchy still continues, even at the lower levels. This will cancel this. It's the men gang up against to make sure this woman doesn't win at the local council level, whatever it is. So that one is there. Of course, unfortunately, we are speaking at a time when politics has been very commercialized in this country. Definitely now, money is a barrier. It has been a barrier in the past, but now it's exceedingly difficult to win an election without injecting a lot of money. You know, when we first came to Parliament, they would just bring the leaders there, talk to them and say, this is what I'm going to do. To say, it's okay, bye. We give you, whatever, but now, say, okay, people who still want money. And as I think you've seen in the recent past, it's not very good. So money is a barrier. And then there's issues of political violence. There's quite a bit of violence in elections at different levels. It's there, and really patriarchy. Those are still there. There are a few areas that we have broken through, but you'll still find that it's the men who are pushing in those areas. You'll still find that it's the men who are pushing in those areas. I would be happy to see a woman Chief Justice. I would be happy to see a woman Principal Judge, but we are still there. We're still there. We have very competent women, but there we are. We are still stuck somewhere. In the business world, I think there are some breakthroughs. Some women are doing well in business, but I think there are not too many either. So we still have the issue of patriarchy. So it's money, patriarchy, violence. Those are still a hindrance to access.
Thank you. So before Mercy comes in, maybe you could tell us, because you talked about a little bit of FIDA, how it started, and considering that you talked about the ceiling breaking and some of the challenges that we're still facing, because people say it's a man's world. Do you think that when you look back, would you consider, or would you say that FIDA has been a success?
No. FIDA is something, especially legal aid service, something I'm very, very proud of, because it, in many ways, it also gave me a platform, both in the region and internationally, because I used to go to the FIDA meetings in the region, the FIDA meetings internationally, speak from there, make proposals which are far-reaching. So it was good. And I'm very proud because it started from very, very humble beginnings. It really started when I was doing some state brief for the government. One day I was involved in a murder case. Someone comes from Kayunga there. So we had taken a break. I think it was Justice Manyendo who was handling the matter. Then we were taking a break, and I was standing on the balcony waiting for the break time. Then a lady comes to me, and she was holding something under her hand. They said, "Madam, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine." And said, "Do you know?" She brought a picture and said, "Do you know this man?" I said, "No, I don't know him." So "This is my husband." I said, "Okay, yes, he's your husband." Said, "Well, I'm showing you because the man you're defending killed this good man you see here. So why are you defending him?" So I tried to explain to her that, you see, this is a state brief, etc. But clearly she was unhappy that I was trying to get him off and so on. So I went back and told my colleagues that I think we need to help our people. There are things we need to help them understand in the law to be able to navigate. That's how FIDA started. So I said, I'm going to Nairobi. I had a friend, a Kenyan friend, he's a man. He was running an organization called Kituo cha Sheria. So I went there and talked to him. I said, I think you need to help us to start a legal aid service. So he gave me some ideas. I came back, and then we went to ask Mrs. Nekion, the National Council of Women, to give us a room. She gave us a leaking room. That's where we started from. And so FIDA has grown from there. So it started, this was small beginnings, and then we attracted the attention of Brother Francis DeWitt, who was in Zambia. He gave us a big box of papers to start our work, and very exciting. It was always voluntary, no money involved. I would take a few hours from my chamber, sit there, somebody else would sit there a few hours. It was quite interesting, and for no pay. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. And then, of course, it spread across the country. It's now many years old. I think it's good. I'm very proud of FIDA.
We hosted FIDA, just for the record. We hosted Lilian Adrico here, and she took us through some of the amazing work that FIDA is doing, for those who are unaware.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all our listeners who have been with us up to now. It's indeed an honor to be able to sit opposite you and ask you a couple of questions. I've followed your work very closely, and I've been in a lot of spaces where you have given keynote speeches, you've and you've been celebrated
Mm.
a lot, and it's definitely full circle moment.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a full circle moment to be able to sit here with you today.
Mm.
Listening to your story, I think the biggest message that comes to mind is that we live forward, but we understand life looking backward.
Mm.
Because your story began as a very agile and hardworking female lawyer who didn't think of things from a place of barriers,
Mm.
and they focused on just getting things done.
Mm.
And I think that's the message that a lot of people who are listening to the space today
Mm.
are also getting. And maybe I'd just like to pick from you a couple of things that you
Mm.
think that any other young lawyer who is trying to get their footing
Mm.
in the legal field, but maybe even just in the political space,
Mm.
should be thinking of. What qualities do you think they should focus on
Mm.
in their career so they can find themselves maybe at a certain point in their lives celebrating similar achievements like you have?
Mm. Mm. I think the young people, should be focused, and they should have a plan for their lives. There are many distractions and there are many demands. Along the way, you get married, you get children, you get this. A number of people have had their marriages broken, not only just because they are politicians, but sometimes your people don't understand your work, why you're always late, why you're always away from home, why do you come back in the night, why you're attending committees and so on. So you have to navigate carefully. So I think it's important to, if you do, for instance, you do have a partner, to make them understand the work you're doing and put them at ease, but also not to get carried away. And you think you have outgrown that command whom you came with to Parliament, and then you want to be somewhere else. I think that's important, but focus. And I would want to ask them to identify a theme that you can work on and make it your brand. You excel at it, and ensure that you do your research and speak to it, and eventually people will know that you're an expert, and it gives you more visibility. Mm.
Thank you very much. I wrote those down to just reflect immediately after here. You mentioned something about the gap between law reform and implementation of these particular laws. Because, I mean, previously the challenge was that there were no laws protecting some of these rights, and
Yes.
you had to create these laws. I'll give an example of the FGM
Yes.
from the context of Amchemtai.
Yes, yes.
From the context of Amchemtai. I mean,
And my name is Chebet.
oh,
Yes,
that's interesting.
that's my name there.
From the context of Amchemtai and your Chebet.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people will say that the law that was created did indeed make people fear doing some of these practices and helped a lot of people get funding in that area. But you will find that there are girls who still voluntarily allow
Undergo.
themselves to go through these processes. And so you have a good law, but the implementation maybe sometimes fails in these areas. So whereas there's the challenge of the patriarchal scenario, some of them, I think, could you give us a different perspective on why some of the implementation of some of these laws has become difficult in spite of us having good laws? Why is in our country's reformation and implementation improving over the years?
For me, with respect to FGM, it's really the society, because in that society, when you're not circumcised, you're the last to draw water. You go to the well, and then they'll say you be the last. Let the women, the real women, go and collect water. So you're the last one there, and you go to a funeral. They say, no, for you sit there. You don't fit here. So the pressures. So why don't I do it in a Chivago? So it's the pressure of society. And when we're making the law, the interesting thing is that our colleagues from the region were afraid to be on the front there. So what I did was to ask Dr. Variomosi to move the bill. It was a private member's bill. I said, you be the move of that bill. No one will follow you because you're Muchiga. So Chris brought the law. We supported him, and I actually brought pictures of what happens. And if people were so short, they say, don't show us, you just make the law. We agreed, okay, aye. No, it was frightening. Said, please, no, we have agreed, just aye, everything aye. You know? So it's a society. So we still need to do some more work. I know that there has been reduced a bit in Kapchora, a bit in Kwen. Boko is still a problem, especially in places like Rupa and so on. Those it's really bad that that's still going on. Of course, some people have made money out of it, but for the last over 20 years, I've been going. No one has paid me to go to. I've been there. I've been to Karamoja. I've been where on that campaign, just because I really wanted to see a change. I've been to the Kenya side. I've been to Ethiopia on the same to the Masai land on the same issues. Yeah.
Just before I invite my colleague Alfred to ask us another question, I do want to bring this other perspective to you with respect to access to justice, and just one of the challenges we have discussed on this space over the number of spaces we've had is case backlog.
Yes.
There is also been a lot of discussions around delayed justice, litigants having a day in court, just people being able to have their cases heard in time because justice delayed is justice denied. And from your perspective, keeping in mind the fact that you're a lawyer, you're a politician, you've sat as a speaker, and you're still definitely doing a lot of this work, what do you think the judiciary and the parliament needs to implement better to be able to improve access to justice and improvement on how effective justice is delivered in our courts today?
You know, sometimes I think that I'm living in the wrong time, because sometimes when you talk to the younger lawyers, the attitude to justice is not the kind of attitude I have. They're happy to delay something, and when I delay, I mean deliberately delay, and the magistrate plays along, and the matter goes on until the litigants get tired. So I think we need to improve on the training, we need to improve on the monitoring and supervision, even of the state attorneys. I have an instance where I was not satisfied with the matter in a Kamuli there. I asked the prosecutor, I said I want a record of appeal. I still haven't got it. Since October last year, I have not received it. That is me. What about the ordinary person? So supervision, monitoring is very, very important. Very, very important indeed. Yeah. The laws are there, but now supervision.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know, I've discussed a lot today evening, and we are very grateful for your time. Personally, when you're talking of Gadumire, Uzaya,
yes.
I was relating very well.
Yeah, think about all that dust, eh?
Yes, and it reminded me when I told my friends that Lido mama mboniranga wala ilo tujakuba naye. Yeah, like hey, Lido mama anjakuba naye. Lido mboniranga wala but ilo tujakuba naye. So thank you for your time today, and before you can't leave this conversation without talking about governance and the future, because you have been in governance or leadership for quite a long time, and then we need to look at the future. So starting from this, I want us to just look at the two arms of government, the judicial and parliament. So from your experience in parliament and also as a lawyer, what roles do you think should the judicial and parliament play together in strengthening the rule of law and ensuring access to justice for the ordinary Ugandans, especially those in Shidera, Uzaya, and everywhere? Yeah, thank you.
Now, I've noticed that sometimes the judiciary makes the law, but remains in judgments. Before I came to parliament, I used to think that as soon as the court issues a new jurisprudence, the Attorney General would move immediately to amend the law. But apparently that's not the position. Apparently that doesn't happen. I think someone has to specifically move the Attorney General to address something that has already been done by the court, to turn it into law. I think it's a very clear gap for me. So the judiciaries think they have made some reforms, but the reforms are sitting in the judiciary. The Attorney General and his team have not done anything about it.
Yes.
So there's that very big gap, which for me I would be happy if they could work together very, very fast.
Yes, yes, yes.
For instance, in the domestic relations cases, all those judgments, there's no doubt about them.
Yes.
They remain there. So for me, that's a very big gap. So I think that one could be handled. It would make things move a bit better. And then on access to justice, issues like the language barrier, our people still sometimes difficult to understand English. I think it's important that we agree on how other people access justice. The issue of the sign language is not yet in the law. All these things make it difficult to access justice. So I think there should be some changes along those lines. But judiciary should act faster on many of the. Sometimes the cases takes 20 years, 30 years. By the time it's over, there's no more subject matter.
Yeah. Thank you. And maybe just as a follow-up to that, do you think maybe the Parliament and the Judiciary, do you think they have always complemented each other, or there are areas where they have fallen short and which could be addressed?
Like I said, those experiences I told you about, the Parliament, the Judiciary tended to go with the executive. Even when you thought it is clear they should side with the Parliament, they tended to go with the executive. That's my experience. That's my experience.
Okay. Yes, I think now at this point I need to turn to the appointment of judicial officers or judges. As a former chairperson of the appointments committee, I would like to have your take on the public vetting of judges. Does it help to build trust and transparency, or it risks bringing politics into the judiciary? And also, just in addition to that, do you think we should rethink how judges are appointed so that the process is more open to the public while still protecting the independence of the bench? Yeah, thank you.
Now, on 3 or 4 occasions, we attempted to move a motion to amend our rules so that we can have open vetting. But each time we brought it up with the government to push it down. The president said no, people they don't ask to be appointed, so don't come and address them in public. So you continue doing it, but we really wanted to do it, make a public vetting as it's done in Kenya. I don't know that it's good in Kenya because it's done publicly. I've not evaluated their system, but that's what we wanted to do. But all the motions failed on both occasions.
Okay, maybe as my last question before we get back to Elson, and I see there are many requests on who are requesting to speak. I think this will be handled as we get the tail end of the conversation. Currently, we have several, let me say, leadership issues with Uganda Law Society, and as a person who is a faithful member of the Uganda Law Society for very many years, I would like you to give some advice to the current leaders of Uganda Law Society, how they can go through these challenges, so that they can so that Uganda Law Society can remain a strong voice for the rule of law, while also supporting the growth and welfare of its members. Yeah, just to give them advice as a leader and also a member of Uganda Law Society. Thank you.
I think maybe there's not been sufficient engagement between the state and the Uganda Law Society. Perhaps if there were some dialogue, it would help to bridge the gap, but it seems they are operating on 2 opposite sides.
Yes.
I would rather advise that we have some dialogue, so that there's more harmony in the way we're working. Because each side is by law entitled to be in the law society, but how do you coexist? For me, if there was more dialogue, I would be happy.
Yes. Thank you. I think you have handled many of my questions. But the real question which I would want to pose next was about mission-based judges, but I'll let the one who is really behind that idea to ask it. Over to you, Section.
Thank you. Thank you very much once again, and to the listeners who are following this conversation. Now there's a question from somebody who is listening in, you right honorable, and they're asking if you may have some regrets so far when it comes to some of the judges that have been approved.
Yes, without mentioning names. Sometimes I ask myself, really? This person? But yes, sometimes I ask myself.
Okay. At this point.
But maybe what I can mention is that it appears that the standards we had set earlier of having a number of years of practice have been abandoned, because you get people who have worked for 3 years and they're appointed judges. But our constitution states something different. So you find people who have not really even practiced go to sit as judges. So they sometimes there are people really a question.
Yeah, thank you for that, Honorable. There are various questions in the chat. I think most of them have been answered. Even you have many requests to speak, but so you have 2 people. I have accepted 2 of them, and we'll give them at least 1 minute or 2 to ask their questions or make their comment. I'll start with one of them. So Dr. Stella Nyanzi is one of our listeners, and I'm sure she has a question. Doctor, are you able to speak in 1 minute or 2 to pose your question? Yes.
Alfred, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, for the time. I am not a student of law or a practitioner. I'm very much interested in politics and power. And I think many Ugandan women, whether we are in the government or in the opposition, we admire your leadership as a woman. 2 quick questions from me. One concerns transition. For those of us who are interested in replacing the NRM, giving power back to Ugandans. As a woman in Uganda who has been very close to Museveni and his leadership, which many of us are tired of, what tips would you advise us about just easing our work? We are tired of the current politics of the day, and it seems we are not making very many inroads. How can women better participate in taking back power from the men in the patriarchy called NRM? And the second question is around justice or injustice, the abduction of dissidents such as a young comrade called Sam Mogumia, who was in exile just as myself, who is a poet and has written an amazing book of poetry documenting the plight of Ugandans. He returned to Uganda in August and was abducted by the UPDF military. He was disappeared. We heard that he was taken to Mbuya. And in spite of writ of habeas corpus that I think one of the judges, Collins Aselam, gave an order to the UPDF to produce his body in court within 7 days, this order was disobeyed by the army. So my question is around the injustices of the government you sit in. You have a long legacy within the NRM. What are Ugandans to do when the justice system that you ushered in, you have been at the helm of, fails dissidents, because Uganda belongs to us too. So 2 questions. How do we get power back to Ugandans from Yoweri Museveni? But 2, how do we make justice work for those who do not believe in the government of Yoweri Museveni, dissidents who criticize him? Thank you very much, Honorable Rebecca Kadaga.
Stella, thank you so much for your question. Concerning the role of women in governance, I think what we should do is to form a political party run by the women. We have the numbers. Run the election, defeat. I think that's what we need to do. On the second one, I detest the abductions. I detest the kidnappings. And I would be happy to see Mugumi out, really. I would be happy to see him on the road.
Yeah, I think doctor has been answered. Then, Kaija Timothy, just in 2 minutes, your question.
Thanks, Alfred, and thanks, Right Honourable, for sharing with us today. For me, you've been one of the most consequential leaders, not only in law but also in politics. Earlier on the call, you said that sometimes you have to balance party interests and individual interests. One of the last party interest business that you handled as Speaker was the constitutional amendment to lift the age limit. We've since had the chance to see of that, what would be the consequences of lifting the amendment. But given the context that today the Electoral Commission has just completed the nominations of the presidential candidates for the forthcoming elections, do you ever feel the dead weight of what would have been if those amendments were not passed? Do you ever reflect what would be the Ugandan discourse if those amendments were not handled by you to be passed? And just a follow-up to that, what lessons could the many lawyers in the political spaces learn from you or from your experience in handling such a moment of historical significance? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timothy. And I'm glad, I think for the first time I'll be able to talk about this issue. You know, the work of the Speaker is to place matters on the order paper, to give people an opportunity to debate, an opportunity to vote. The Speaker has no vote, by the way. The Speaker does not have a vote. So whether it has been me or any other person, and a motion is brought, you have to put it on the table. So it's up to the members to vote or not to vote. So the amendment required a certain number of votes, and the votes were reached in public. It was a public vote. So Rebecca Kadaga does not vote. The work of Rebecca Kadaga was to put the matter on the paper and say, ladies and gentlemen, an issue has been brought. What are your views? Those were their views. That's the position.
Thank you, Honorable. I'm sure Timothy has been answered. Yes, you want to add something?
We're getting honorable very many requests for questions, and I think we have maybe more than 5 that are that are pending, but maybe we'll take 1 or 2. I don't know how much time we have. Maybe we'll take 1 or 2. Just so we can manage the time.
Okay, you stop at 9?
Yeah, we intend to stop at 9.
Okay, maybe take 2.
We'll take 2. Okay, so the next, I think, I'll hand back to Alfred. He's very good at moderating the question.
Yeah, thank you, Elson, for that honor to moderate. I think we'll take one from, I saw Mark, and then, yeah, Mark. Let's first take one from Mark. Mark, over to you in 2 minutes, because we are running short of time, and we want 1 minute because we want to end at exactly 9. Thank you. Mark, are you able to speak? Maybe. I think since Mark is not able to speak, he's speaking. Okay, just proceed.
Mandu, so I thought that you had called another Mark, a man Joshua Gift.
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. My question could be when Elson was had asked, and you said something about the party interest and the public. How were you able to handle such matters when something was contradicting with the party interest and the public? How were you able to handle such a matter while you were speaker?
Actually, my best example is the issue of the rebel MPs, because as one of the highest ranking leaders of my party, I received a letter of this from the Secretary General asking me to suspend, actually expel members from the House. But I looked at it in this way, that they had made some statements against the party, but outside Parliament. So in my view, it was a matter which came from outside Parliament, don't fall within our ambit. But secondly, the Constitution was clear on what are the grounds for expulsion of a member of Parliament. There were 8 grounds, and what they had said was not part of that. So that was one of the areas where we had a very big skirmish, a very big one. If you don't know, we were in court for over 4 months over this matter. So that is one of the areas where we had a very big skirmish. There were others, but it was the major one. At that time, I said no, I don't think it's in the interest of the public to import party issues into the Parliament and expel members of Parliament when it is against the Constitution. So that's how I handled it.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable. We shall have, there are like, I can select 10 more requests, but in the interest of time, since we want to end at 9, I will take the last one from Reina. Reina, just in 1 minute, you pose your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Right, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, I would have been in the room had I not been away on duties, but it would have been my utmost pleasure to meet you in person and ask this question. So, Ellison's campaign has unearthed quite a number of innovations or suggestions that we can have in order to be able to reduce the case backlog. And in being able to do that, one of the things that we have come across is that there are quite a number of complaints from the legislature on how the judges are selected. So, in a moment of frankness, do you think you are able to maybe mention a scenario in which a judge's order or perhaps a judge's decision caused some dissatisfaction amongst the legislature that might have unearthed reasons to change the selection of judicial officers? Or is there no such memory that exists? Thank you.
Now, there have been 2. Okay, there have been many, but I could talk about 2 without naming names. One was in respect of the anti-homosexuality law, which had been enacted by our Parliament, but a judicial officer was moved very, very quickly to make that case jump the queue, because there were a lot of cases under backlog, to jump the queue and fix that date and have the matter heard expeditiously ahead of all other cases, and against the interests of Parliament and against the interest of the country. So that's one of them. Definitely that one happened. The second one is in relation to what I said was the stupid order, in that an order was given effectively saying Parliament should stop talking about the Uganda Revenue Authority. Which is not, I mean, how can you talk about a budget or even any bill at any time without mentioning the Uganda Revenue Authority? That was a stupid order, as I said. And interestingly, the same person was around in the same area. I won't mention him, but the same person was involved in both cases. I won't mention the name.
Okay, I think right now you have been answered. Then, Madam Kaveja, just in 1 minute, because you now have 5 minutes to end the space. You may pose your question or make your comment.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right, Honorable, it's an honor on my end. So let me get right straight to it. So, Madam Speaker, okay, for me, you still remain Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, you broke barriers as the first speaker, definitely, for our Parliament. And you often speak about the challenges of patriarchy. Yet, during your time, you worked within and strengthened a government that many argue has systemically instrumentalized women's rights as political points while failing to protect women and girls from real violations. And at the same time, under your leadership still, you oversaw a constitutional change that is obviously an erosion of democratic accountability. And it's something you took pride in, that, you know, you helped this government stay in power, something like that. So my question is, how do you reconcile your pioneering role for women in leadership with the fact that you also helped entrench a government that remains one of the greatest impediments to women's rights? And also, just looking back, what responsibility do you feel for these contradictions, and how do you see your legacy in this context? And personally, I'm asking as someone who was looking up to you growing up and just watching how your leadership has gone down this road because of this government. I just want to understand also, yes, as I've asked, how do you see your legacy in this context? Thank you.
I didn't get her name. Thank you very much. I didn't get your name. Kaveja. I had already explained, Kaveja, that the Speaker does not have a vote in the House. Whether it had been me or any other person, the people who vote are the voters, and these are the members of Parliament. I think you should look for the names of the people who voted yes to that amendment, because they're known, they're on the Hansard. Please get the Hansard and get all the names of those who voted yes and those who voted no. You'll not find my name there because the Speaker has no vote. So the vote was taken by the members of Parliament. That's the first thing. The second one, about the rights of the women and girls, I think I'm the biggest voice for women and girls in this country. I'm the biggest voice for women and girls in this country. No one can compete with me on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
One mark, yes.
Oh, do you still have another person asking a question?
Aditi Mark, just in 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. I'll be brief and I'll be direct to my question. Not Honorable Speaker, Emeritus, you said that you have no vote, and the Speaker has no vote. But remember earlier on when you were campaigning for Speaker of Parliament, you made some remarks where you claimed that if it wasn't for you, Museveni would have left power. So I wanted to clarify what you meant by that statement, and you here saying that you have no vote, but you took the pride saying that it's you. If it wasn't because of you, Museveni would have left power. And secondly, my question is, the second question I'll be brief is like,
I think Mark, let's stick with one question because we're running out of time. We have a few minutes.
Yes. Briefly, as a senior speaker, are there judicial
I think we've.
been approved by Parliament, especially with the current public rules of confidence?
I don't think I do.
Thank you.
I think the next question was whether there have been any judicial appointments rejected by Parliament. I think that's what he asked. But maybe just before you go into answering that, we'll take one last question from Elaine. who is here. Elaine, for those who know, has been behind the scenes. I'm very happy that you gave Ms. Kaveje a chance to ask Alfred. I see a comment from her saying we're behaving like UBC hosts. I don't know if that's a bad thing. But Elaine?
First of all, it's my absolute honor to be in your presence. And anybody who knows me, I really enjoy to be in the background. So this will be the first question that I have asked on this show in the, I don't know how many series that it has done. One of the things that stood out for me was the conversation, in our conversation this evening, was the fact that you said change takes time. You talked about a change that you pushed through Parliament that took 11 years. Now, our conversations here at the JSC Conversation Series has really focused on the question of mission-based judges. Now, this evening we haven't talked a lot about that, but our sort of theory of change, or I would say the theory of change of our candidate for the Judicial Service Conversations position as Commissioner at the Judicial Service Commission is that the courts are bogged down with numerous cases, and we are in a place where really justice, is delayed to a point where it's denied. And yet the Constitution has a provision that allows for us to be able to appoint mission-based judges if the business of the court so requires. Now, I feel that being in your presence, we have the greatest opportunity to get advice on what we would need to do practically to actually move this from an idea that we have had conversations about over the last couple of months to something that we can implement, and we don't have 11 years. So what are your 3 most urgent steps that we could take to ensure that this idea being pushed by our candidate, Mr. Ellison Karahanga, actually moves from just being an idea into something practical, so that we can also go down in history as having made some useful change? And I think no better person is placed to give us this advice than you, who has pushed several changes, including one that lasted 11 years. Thank you.
Now, I'm not sure that I agree with the issue of practical knowledge. Take what to 21 judges and then come back to their practice. I don't know how you will ensure that there's no conflict of interest. I would rather we took the number of retired judges and give them some contracts, because they don't have the ties of their chambers, they're not practicing law. You're sure that they finish their work at some stage, and I thought I would think that if you took some retired judges and gave them a contract to do ABCD, it might help. They're practicing lawyers. Then you go back to your chambers later, after being a judge for a year. Then you go back and...
Actually, perhaps to just speak a little bit. And what I love is that even in this conversation, you're able to come to us and say, we don't agree, you don't agree. And that's great, because then even that alone is part of the conversation that we need to have. But the idea is not really that these lawyers would be on this case for, say, a whole year. It's more, that's why we call it mission-based. So, for example, we have situations where we have cases that come up in very specialized areas. Let's give an example of if we had a matter that was an airspace aviation matter. Okay. We have the opportunity, and I think in Uganda today we have probably 3 or 4 airspace aviation lawyers. Now, this matter could go before a regular judge who already has so many cases, or we could just do a simple check. Is there a conflict of interest in this matter? If there is no conflict of interest in this matter, we are going to call upon Mercy Makabai, who we know to be an aviation specialist. And her simple role is to come in on the mission to handle this airspace aviation matter dispose of it, and go back to her practice. So that's kind of the concept that we are looking at. And even within those mission-based judges, of course, even retired judges would still be able to come back in, because I think 142.2 and 142.1, both of them cater for the scenarios where we have retired judges coming back in. But 142.2 just looks at basically competent, qualified people who would be qualified to take on that position. And what we are saying is that where the backlog is today, even if we applied all of the retired judges, we are still not going to be able to solve this problem. And of course, you have the challenge where, once someone has been a judge and they are operating at a certain level, even if you bring them back on contract, you're going to have this challenge where you're not going to be able to apply them for a salary or a remuneration that is less than what they were accustomed to. And yet we have those budgetary constraints. So I think, that's just something that we would like, to see the possibility of having it happen. And just so that I still get the wisdom of your question, hypothetically, let's assume that you agree with us. How would we still push through something like this within reasonable time, given that neither one of us here on this panel is as influential as you are, neither are we in Parliament. So I think two things. One is for you to sort of reconsider your thoughts now that we've given you some more insight into the concept. But number two, assuming that we were able to convince you to agree, how would we, what practical steps would we push
I think that one,
to make it
the
happen?
practical steps are not very, very hard. Once you have conceptualized it, is to get the Minister of Justice to bring a cabinet paper, bring a small amendment relating to that particular area, amend the Judicature Act, just for that part, and make it part of the law, so that from time to time you can apply it. Arrange to amend the law.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. Thank you. You've sat with us for more than 2 hours, taking questions from everywhere, from every corner, from friendly fire and unfriendly fire in some instances.
Yes.
But I think you've kept your cool and you've answered these questions quite clearly. My question would have been, my last question would have been the one on mission-based judges, and I think maybe we'll have another time to have a full conversation about it. Our argument is that it's already actually in the law. Article 142.2 of the Constitution says that if the business of the court so requires, if the courts are so overwhelmed, then the Judicial Service Commission, the Chief Justice, simply has to write to inform them that we're overwhelmed, and then they can bring in any person qualified, including retired judges. At the moment, we have used serving judges. We have ever invoked that article, but by using serving judges in the High Court or the Court of Appeal to sit on higher petitions. I think the petition of General Tinyefuza had Justice Egonda Antende in the Constitutional Court coming from up. I think the petition of the appeal in the Supreme Court of Henry Tumukunde, actually a number of appeals in the year 2005, because I think in the year 2005 we had 5 judges, no, 2007 maybe, we had 5 judges in the Supreme Court, and I think one of them, Justice Molenga, was in the East African Court. Justice Odoki was also having his duties as a Chief Justice, and so what the Supreme Court did to see it was it used to bring judges from the lower bench up to the higher bench. But we've not and then in 2013, I think some judges were given contracts. I think Justice Sekoko, Justice Chitumba, Justice Okello were given, I think, 2-year contracts. But we've not seen this provision applied either to acting judges who have completely left the system, usually they call them back as mediators, or even to senior advocates in practice, like happens in South Africa or in the UK. And our contention is that at the moment the average time it takes is 10 years to handle a land dispute. The Ugandans on remand in prison for up to 7 years waiting for a trial. I mean, we've had here that you yourself, you have told us that getting a record of appeal from October last year. So that is, but I think we'll have that debate more fully. But I think we want to thank you very much for coming. And maybe our last question is not about that acting judges or anything, but it is your parting remarks. We've sat and listened to you. There are some people I've heard who are saying, what about this amendment? I saw Mark's question was about this amendment that happened, and you've explained the amendment. Some people are saying that maybe women's rights haven't gone far enough. But I think there's nobody who can question the fact that you bear, as they say in the Bible, on your body the marks of the struggle for women's emancipation, from the fact that you started and many women joined practice. You started the legal aid process at the Law Society. The Law Society, Honorable Norbert Mao told us, began its legal aid clinics in 1994. So if that was almost 6 years after FIDA, and Honorable Norbert Mao told us that he was actually the first person employed in the legal aid project of the Uganda Law Society. So if you started this, and we've seen other legal aid projects grow. You've pushed the barriers in Parliament. So many laws, even just spousal consent in land. I think if you look at that time, spousal consent in land was a big fight about the marriage and divorce bill, although it never came through the
I know we did a few clauses until they were partially disrupted us.
So if you could give us your bird's eye view of where, just your parting shots, the things on your heart, the things that you've seen, the things, because it's not all the time. We may not always agree, all of us, on everything, but the mere fact that all these people have come to listen to you, I think is a very powerful thing. And may you just give us your bird's eye view on where we should be going, and your closing remarks also on the state of all the changes that you've brought.
Well, first I want to really thank you for this opportunity to speak to our legal fraternity about a cross-section of issues. I still feel that reforms are so bureaucratic. There's so much bureaucracy involved. In fact, by the time you get to the end of it, you're more or less run out of steam. So I think reform should be taken more seriously. And maybe one of the things I had wanted to do but became hard was to have public consultations on bills before they are tabled, even in the cabinet. You know, in the British system, they start by public consultations and then they prepare the bill. But here we prepare the bill and then go to the public brief, and then at the end maybe the public doesn't agree, but you've moved so far. So I would have been happy to see pre-bill consultations with the population before even the cabinet drafts the bills. I think that would simplify our lives a bit more. But also, like in respect to the marriage laws, our friends in Kenya made progress. Although there is a more patriarchal society, they made progress in some of the areas that were failed. You know, so I think we need to learn something from the way they did it. We still need a lot of consultation and lobbying, and I think we need to look at really the benefits of society rather than sticking to our positions of patriarchy and so on. That's a very, very big, difficult area. It's a difficult area. So the judiciary, I think we need to make sure that we have enough judicial officers, Of course, there are more courts now. I can see a lot of new courts, new circuits. But the speed and sometimes the output is not very, it's a bit disappointing. So I hope you can look at that.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Right Honorable. If you've just joined us, you're late. We've had a fantastic conversation with very many people. I see some are still requesting to speak, but
Oh dear.
unfortunately the time is fast spent. We usually end at this point. I usually take the advantage as the host to give closing remarks. But first of all, I'll take the opportunity to thank you, Right Honorable Kadaga, for giving us an evening not of idle talk but of living history, for allowing our friends who join us every Wednesday, many of these people, even these who think we are UBC hosts, are our friends.
Okay.
So many of our friends who have joined us have been able to sit at the feet of what I would call a pioneer, a person who has carried the burdens of justice and the fire of social change. And your record is not just a chronicle of your rise, but it's a testament to your resilience. So allow us to leave this place. Very grateful to you for your time. Very grateful to you for your patience that out of your busy schedule, at very short notice, in a very busy time, I'm sure within the ministry, within the politics. I saw you at Kololo, that you've taken the time to actually come here and engage with people of all walks of life and different thoughts and different views. And you've taught us, for many of us at least, the value of duty. That it is your duty, that you are accountable, that you are answerable to those who are listening, that you are willing to sit and take their questions even beyond the time allotted, and that there is no question that has faced you, but you've been able to sit through, listen to people's concerns and answer them. And for us at a generational level, I think we take a lesson on duty, on service, on you said that you don't know if you're living in the right time because you look at the young lawyers now and you don't know if they have a heart for justice. I can assure you that some of these young lawyers here also have a very strong heart for justice. So we are grateful. I think those are very many words to say thank you.
Okay.
And
one of the things I miss is my practice. That's one of the things I miss. I really enjoyed my practice, but of course, so when I have a opportunity like this, it takes me back to my arena. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Usually we also close with a song. Now, I'm also Alfred reminds me that I'm also a young lawyer.
Okay.
Yes, and at least now we have heard that Right Honorable Kadaga began practicing law. Before law was a bad idea even in my head, so certainly I'm a young lawyer. Alfred keeps claiming I'm a very old lawyer. Usually we end with a song, and owing to public demand, as I told you, Right Honorable, we have an election in the Law Society, and owing to public demand, Alfred here is contesting to be the youth. He claims young people. I don't know why he calls himself young, but he's contesting to represent young people on the East African Law Society. So he wants to go regional, like you. And I, of course, am contesting to be the ULS rep on the Judicial Service Commission. So we usually end with a song which members have been demanding that we end with, and we feel a bit embarrassed to say it in your presence, but nonetheless, no. That one will be for next week. But for now, Olimujawa Musaja Singers.
Oh, Wasagazi.
Yes.
Okay.
Olimujawa musajja singa Olimujawa musajja singa nze Olimujawa gwe Holy